right, so welcome back, Brothers View. Gonna keep this ball rolling. I'm here with Raymond, two brothers, different points of view. Sometimes come to the same conclusion, sometimes we don't. Last time we had a disagreement, but we're still here. And one thing I think you and I won't disagree on is, well, let's bring it up and then I think we won't disagree on, but what's happening with the MCU, dude? They just released the Marvels. Box office disaster. They said it was the lowest grossing Marvel film ever. And I know you and I have had conversations back and forth about this. Is the MCU over? Are people superhero fatigued? Can they come back with another movie to bring it back? What do you think they did wrong? Is there a future? Is it over? Because they're talking about still rolling on to phase 3 or something like that.
5, really.
Phase 5, okay.
We're supposed to be in 4. We're supposed to go into 5. There are so many different factors that goes into Miss Marvels and where we are with the Marvel Universe. In terms of the concept of, like, are we at superhero fatigue where we can't do any of those movies? I think that's absolutely ridiculous. There's no such thing. It's a question of how are we packaging it to the current audience, current market, what's going to work. Brie Larson has been attacked.
I feel bad for
the
her.
moment she was selected to play Miss Marvel,
yeah.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, yeah.
Okay, the moment that she was picked for that part, there has been all this negativity surrounding her. So it doesn't surprise me now that her quote-unquote second movie heading the whole thing, that we'll have this negativity. Long before this movie was ever released, they started talking about how the movie was going to be crappy. They talked about the director, all
I don't think she does a bad job.
I have zero problems with her. But to look at all the negativity that's going around behind her, I don't understand it at all.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with this woman. She did an excellent performance. She's played the part. It's not like she wrote the script. If you have a problem with the character, as far as I can tell, it's pretty accurate representation of the comic book. There's zero issues with this woman. And yet somehow there has been a lot of negativity aimed at her. I feel like the negativity that's being aimed at her is really deeply rooted in a different issue and is actually what is hurting Marvel right now. In the sense that I think that the average audience viewer feels like the need for woke agendas is being forced upon their intellectual property that they particularly enjoy.
So this goes back to like the leadership of Disney, the direction Disney wants to take all of their companies, or
right. I think that people feel like we wanted a female comic book iconic individual so badly that Captain Marvel was the option that they threw at us. And I think people are resenting that, not because there's anything wrong with Captain Marvel, but because it feels forced. And I think that's really what's hurting a lot of the projects that are coming out of Disney right now, is a lot of the elements that we could assign to the woke agenda, fair or not, feel to the average person as being forced. Because the original cast, guys that were successful, were basically all young white guys.
Right. Well, so let's go to probably one of the first good MCU movies, or I wouldn't say good, but successful, right? I think it was Iron Man, right?
Correct. That's when it started.
So it started off with Iron Man, Tony Stark. Fantastic movie. My guy pulled it off, man. He did good. Big risk they took on him, bringing him back from, So we're saying it was a white guy, did the movie. His counterpart was, I think it was Terrence Howard there, right? Not a white guy.
In that movie, yes.
In that movie, right? Yes. It was Terrence Howard. In the next movie, it was Don Cheadle, right? But we're saying it was so much focused, maybe. But here's my problem. It was true to the comic book.
Correct.
So I don't necessarily think that it was a white character, a white male character. I don't think that played a role in it.
I don't think
it was
that
just
had
true.
anything to do with what they were trying to do.
And they were really just focusing on the comic.
Yes.
Fast forward, we were seeing little drips and drops of them changing things.
So outside of Spider-Man, some of the most iconic, famous Marvel comic book characters would be the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, and these were what they launched everything with.
Right.
And moved forward.
Right.
Okay.
There's really little controversy there.
Correct.
Okay.
It just so happens, though, that these iconic characters that you launched the whole thing with happen to be a bunch of white men.
Okay.
Okay. The only female character never even got her own movie. She got introduced as a side character, referring to Scarlett Johansson as the Black Widow.
Black Widow, yeah.
Okay. As a side character in Iron Man, never really properly gets her due until much later.
Right.
Okay. By the time we get around to giving her her due, it feels forced. Because in the MCU continuity, her character was already dead.
So we're talking about the movie that she did
The Black Widow movie.
towards pandemic. Well, it came out in pandemic,
Came
or
out
they
in the
held
middle
it,
of
or
the pandemic,
whatever.
right?
Right.
And that had its own set of problems that could have contributed to the problems,
Right.
to the lack of success for that particular movie.
Right.
But this started this whole wave of, okay, we needed to bring in a black Captain America. We needed to bring in some more diversity. We needed to have a gay character with the Eternals, and we needed to have, more female diversity. I think for a lot of the viewers, a lot of these stories, which were original comic book stories,
Right.
but it just felt forced. Like there was so much effort to bring in non-white characters that people feel like it's being forced upon them, fair or not.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's the attention that's being given it. I think that's the spectrum that the Marvels is being addressed in, because not only do we have no male characters, okay, we have 3 female characters, all drastically different diversities. We have a white woman, you have a black woman, and you have a Pakistani girl.
Right.
Okay, maybe I should say woman because she's actually over 18, right? So
Female.
female, okay.
Right.
But the point is you launched this whole diversity thing. I think for a lot of the average audience viewers, it's all starting to feel forced, and therefore they're viewing it in that light. Whereas when Tony Stark came on the screen, there were no expectations.
True. Well, yeah, they had never done anything like that. I don't think any superhero movie has ever had that budget, that script, that all-star cast. I mean, yeah, there've been some great, but that movie was just phenomenal. They did a great job with it. But let me ask you, you're more of a comic junkie than I am. The other Captain of Marvel, Rambo, what was her first name?
Monica Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau.
Yes.
In the comic, she is a black character, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Miss Marvel,
Yes.
in the comic, she's Pakistani or
Yes.
from the Middle East, right?
That is my understanding. I didn't read the comic book when I was a comic book reader, but
Yeah.
going back and looking at it, and I really enjoyed the series. Yes, she was always written as a Pakistani character. There was no change done.
So where did
to
they
make it
fail?
fit.
Where did they fail by forcing that narrative when all they did was take the same characters and put them together? Where did they fail? Because I do think the Rambo character and the original Captain Marvel, they do have some sort of interactions in the comic world, right?
Yes, because actually Monica Rambeau's character at one point did use the name Captain Marvel,
Right.
and her mother knew Carol Danvers, which was also addressed in the movie, when she was a little girl.
Right.
So there was an association between the two characters from the beginning. I think where it goes wrong is just the timing of it. I think it just feels a little bit too forced. And I think that's really where the issue comes in. Again, I haven't seen the Marvels yet, but I like...
Are you going to?
Oh, absolutely.
You are?
Absolutely. Oh,
Are
absolutely.
you going to watch it in the theater or you going to wait till Disney
No,
Plus?
I'm not going to theaters. I'm not going to the theaters.
Yeah, I can't
For
see myself
different-
going to watch
which,
it.
Okay, but no,
Yeah.
you bring that up. Let's go to that, because that comes into the other issue with the quote-unquote failed success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think the entire film industry has changed dramatically during the time that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been in existence.
Yeah.
When Iron Man came out, there was no question we were going to go to the movie theater to go watch it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, up until a few years ago, the only reason why I went to a movie theater was to either watch a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie. No other movie was worth my time to go to the movie theater to go watch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get
And
that whole
I've
big screen.
removed those
Yeah.
from that. Okay. Because the reality of it is with my system at home, I can watch it in better definition, with better sound, and more reliably at my own time. I just have to wait a few months for it. Going to the movie theater doesn't...
It's lost its appeal.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
And
that's
we've seen this, right? Theaters are losing money like crazy, right?
And that could be, a residual effect of the pandemic. People got used to not going to the movie theaters because we were afraid of the pandemic. And then honestly, we just got in the habit of not going. I just don't think people go to the movies as much. So to use the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films as box office numbers, I don't know that that really holds
It
value.
might not be fair, right?
I, I question that. I have to really.
I remember growing up, movies go straight to VHS,
Yes,
and that was like, oh, because they're crappy movies.
they were B movies.
B movies, yeah, B movies. That's what they
yes,
were, right?
yes.
Well, now, I mean, look at some of the productions Netflix has put out.
HBO.
HBO, Prime.
Yes.
Some of those movies are just they're type A, type.
Some of these series
top
are
notch.
way more exciting than anything that came out in the theater during
I
that
have to
time that
agree.
year.
So I think going to the theater has lost its prestige. It's definitely lost its appeal. I take my daughter to the movies, and we spend more on popcorn, Coke, and then than the actual freaking ticket. And I'm like, dude, well, what are we doing here? I'm getting overpriced popcorn, overpriced fountain soda, and whatever stale nachos. So
And for what you paid for to watch the movie, not
Yeah.
even talking the food, just actual movie tickets, what you paid for would have covered you for 2 months of some streaming service where you could have watched it.
for sure,
Or
for sure,
1 month of 2 different services where you could basically watch,
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense.
it doesn't make sense. Yeah, economically, it doesn't make sense. The experience really isn't all that. I don't know what else they can do. Maybe it's a failing. Maybe it's like the Netflix DVDs. It's done, never again. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just everybody needs to evolve. And I remember they were talking about Netflix movies don't get qualified for the Oscars, and they want to change that. And I think one of these big Scorsese, I think, was one of the big directors who's like, oh no, can't have a Netflix movie that's Oscar worthy. I think that's a dinosaur's mentality, and it's time to evolve and accept that straight to streaming, quote unquote, former B movies, they
And
have a
Netflix
place.
has been working around that issue by releasing their movies
Oh yeah.
under limited release in some Monkey Mouse theater somewhere.
Oh, just
You
to
know,
be able to be
Just to be able to say, okay,
That's-
now it's,
That's pretty
I don't
cool.
know how often it actually works.
Yeah.
I don't know of an actual Netflix movie that managed to actually get to that point where it got nominated,
Right.
but they're actually trying to work around that
It's a start.
technicality
yeah.
of this system,
Yeah.
which is essentially, it's an antiquated system.
It is.
It's not the way that people consume movies anymore.
Yep. It's like trying to use the Nielsen rating still. It doesn't work anymore. You can't.
That's
Things
not
have
how people
changed.
consume their
Yeah.
content anymore.
That's not how people consume their content. I like the way you said that. So, we're going to shift and pivot a little bit to the Republican national debates, the candidates. We know our Mickey Mouse killer, Ron DeSantis. He's been fighting Disney. I think he's been losing that battle. I think it's cost him a lot of political clout. I think he could have done better if he just ignored Disney. But from the Republican debates, any candidate stands out to you as a real contender? Like I know we don't really pay attention too much to the debates because it really doesn't matter. To me, the general election is where it really matters. The primaries. This guy just pulled out, by the way. Tim Scott, I think.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, black
Okay.
senator from I can't remember what state, but he just pulled out. So that's shrinking, right? I thought he was up there as a possible front runner.
From my understanding of the polls,
Yeah.
and we could debate the value of polls, but the way that the numbers are looking,
Uh-huh.
every single person on that stage is irrelevant.
And that's what I still
a
don't get
problem.
it, but yeah.
That's, to me, a problem because the front runner is considered to be Donald Trump.
Still.
Like it or leave it. Okay.
Yep.
And the problem is we're not talking about a front runner because he's up by a few points. It's a
it's huge.
ridiculous margin.
I think he's like 45%. And
To the
next,
point where-
yeah, the
so-
next closest one's like 13.
Why am I wasting time listening to these candidates debate and getting to know them, which I'm sure that they're wonderful human beings and could be great candidates to be president. But the bottom line is they are so far behind in these numbers
Yeah.
that it's not really, they're not part of the conversation. Why am I going to invest time and effort in analyzing everything that these guys have to say and what they're going to put forward on the snowball's chance in hell that somehow Trump gets knocked off and we,
Yep. Well, there's a year. There's a year to the election.
a lot
Roughly.
can happen.
They're like, I think maybe 51 weeks away or something like
Yes.
that. A lot could happen. You think Trump will go to jail?
No,
You don't think he'll go to jail?
I don't.
Do you think he'll run for president and not running the way he's running now? Traditional, stand there, do a debate, get on one of these major news networks? Or do you think he's just going to have some totally guerrilla campaign?
I think he's going to do a totally guerrilla campaign. I think he has proven he doesn't need to go through the established system.
That's pretty badass. Love him or hate him, that's pretty badass. I mean, this guy said the hell with Twitter and started his own social media platform. I mean, this guy's, well, it's not Twitter anymore. What's it called?
X.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, you gotta have some sort of respect for that. Love him or hate him.
The reason why I don't have respect for him in this arena is because I don't understand it. The day that I can figure out how he has gotten to this position, okay, how it is possible that a candidate, okay, does not need to go on stage and have a debate and stand out on his issues, because that's what we've seen all of our lives. This is how candidates are chosen. This is how we guys move forward.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And debates usually are what creates momentum for a candidate. You know,
There's like that one moment
where you shined and everybody felt an inkling of that you knew who this candidate was and they moved forward, whatever. He doesn't need any of that. And that is hard for me to wrap my head around. So is there something underhanded happening here? There's some sort of voodoo magic? Is this really some sort of popularity? Is this really just about money? Like, where is the mechanism that has allowed him to go ahead and do this and create this situation? However, if we could come to understand that and someone else were to duplicate this in some way, shape, or form, it would completely upset the entire political process, which honestly we could use.
Yeah, we could use, and that's what I always wanted for Trump to do, is to disrupt.
That has always been the hope of Donald Trump,
and he's done that. But I think he's done so much more that you don't know whether history will tell if he improved, or at least got us to the argument of improving our antiquated political system. But once we learn the magic behind the magician, is the magician still going to be as sought after?
Still the first. Still develop the system. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough.
Unless you're going to tell me that somehow, some way he did something inappropriate or illegal.
That doesn't seem to have stopped.
No, it doesn't. But in terms of someone else being able to duplicate the system.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? If he basically creates a blueprint of how you can basically not follow this established system that we've all been sick and complaining about for the last, 50 years, well, my entire adult life.
Right.
Okay. So if we can figure out a way to circumvent that system, create a new system, develop, move on, get rid of the stagnation that exists in our political system based on what he's done, that is going to be pivotal. That's going to be revolutionary in terms of what happens to the country. And that might actually be the most significant thing that Donald Trump contributes to political society.
Do we need a third party? Because countries like the UK, I think they have 6 parties. Other countries don't have a what's it called, a bi-party system. Would a third party, and I'm not talking about the independent party because that's bullshit. That's a waste of time. Could a third party or even a fourth party fix our political climate? Because the problem is, why did most people vote for Trump on the first? I shouldn't say why did most people. Why did a lot of people vote for Trump on the first election? Was because they didn't want to vote for Hillary.
The anti-Hillary vote was a major factor.
Right, it was big. Even if it was only 5 points.
Yeah, it was enough.
It was enough to win.
Yes.
Why did Biden become president against Trump? I think Trump lost a lot because of how the whole pandemic was handled, and people just didn't want to vote for Trump.
The anti-Trump vote also worked for Biden's without question.
That can't be the way we decide politics. So would a third party or a fourth party solve that problem?
So we in a prior segment, we talked about the whole us versus them mentality. And that is a problem. And that's something
Great lighter you bought me, by the way.
You're welcome. That's something you have to work around. We need to get away from this us versus them issue. I reject categorically the idea that every single issue that faces the American people can be cut down party lines. There's no way that you're going to tell me that every person who has the same position on environmentalism is going to have the same position on pro-life. It's going to have the same issue on economics.
Right.
These
we might
issues
agree on
are
one
not.
thing, but we're not going to agree on...
Exactly. So yet somehow the entire party has to toe the same line. That just makes no sense. Okay? So when we say, should there be a third, I feel like anything short of 5 or 6 political parties is a lie.
Interesting.
Because we have that many factions, that many divisions, and when you choose to align yourself with Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, you're accepting that entire blanket statement, and you either have to drink the Kool-Aid or you don't get the support.
Right.
And that is how the money is flowing.
But why can't you be a why are conservatives or the conservative party or movement, why is that associated with Republican? Why can't I be a Democratic conservative? Why is liberal always have to lean one way? Why can't I be a liberal Republican? Why does it have to be such an oxymoron? Is that because of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's the whole us is them mentality. We're somehow trying to paint the whole brush that way. You have a large contingent of people who have socialist ideology.
Right.
And I'm not trying to paint that in a negative light. That's just how they view the situation.
Sure.
Okay? Socialist ideology and Democrat ideology are not the same.
No, right? I agree with that.
Okay. Yep. But all of those socialists end up in the Democratic Party and then therefore pull the Democratic Party in that direction. Why don't we just have a socialist party?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You have individuals who are particularly liberal within the Democratic Party, so we associate the liberals with the Democrats, but there are actually some very conservative individuals, okay, and organizations within Democrats. They're not that liberal.
Yep.
You know, they are forced to be associated that way because they've chosen to identify as Democrat, and then that whole brush gets painted.
Yeah.
And if you want the money to flow, you have to endorse that platform.
Yep. You got to toe the party line if you want to get. And I think maybe that's part of the problem. Our campaign financing, our campaign laws. Maybe we have to change that. How we fund these campaigns, but at the end of the day, the majority of the money that comes through PACs, right? Political action committees, interest groups, super PACs, things like that.
Well, yeah, they're certainly a major factor. I don't know if I would say the majority, but that's obviously a major.
So where else do we get campaign funds from? Because I know the government, there is money within the actual party itself, right?
Right, they don't have their own coffers, but it comes from individual donors, where traditionally people refer to the Republican coffers being come from a smaller group of wealthier individuals. So that's why it's associated with the party of the rich. The Obama administration was phenomenally successful in doing more grassroots funding.
So I think they were the first ones to really use the internet to do that.
The internet, yes, but grassroots funding, I mean, they didn't invent grassroots funding, but they certainly leveraged the internet like no one had ever done before.
Exactly.
And that came to their success. So their final coffers ended up massive, but it came from a lot more smaller individual donors, essentially voting with their dollars.
Yeah. Fair enough, because you're kind of gonna support your candidate with, but I think they're limited to like $100 or $150, something like that. It's not a massive amount, but when you see these people buying elections with millions upon millions of dollars through these super PACs, I kind of wonder, is that the reason why we have such divisiveness? It's an oxymoron. It's divisiveness, but by limiting your choices. So you're forced to be on this side, and I can't talk to these people over here. So we've lumped us all in together. But the minute I go over here, then you guys kick me out. And then you guys only accept me over here if I drink the Kool-Aid, swim in the Kool-Aid, and take all of it. But wait a minute, I only felt like that on a couple of issues. But in order for me to have a seat at the table and be one of you, I have to adopt all of your ideologies, all of your whatevers. And yeah, that's a problem. I think I always say, and I think you and I go back and forth on this, I saw that, and maybe it's because it's just of my age, but I first saw that divisiveness happen when Barack Obama became president. That's when I started to realize an us versus them situation. It's funny because I remember his speech at the Democratic National Convention. He was the keynote speaker. He was talking, and that was the speech that put him on the map as far as I was concerned. And that was a great speech about unity, red states, blue states, we're all the United States. Great. But man becomes president, and all of a sudden I kind of just see more divisiveness happen more. Then I feel like when Trump became president, that was like, if there was a couple of strings holding us together, the axe just came in. And I'm not blaming Trump for it, but I'm saying, to me, those are the two pivotal moments in history that I remember. And I don't know if you felt, I think you feel it was happening sooner.
I think it started sooner, specifically with the during the Bush administration with the whole Tea Party movement.
Okay.
I think the Tea Party movement was the first one to gain national attention in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the concept of we're not going to compromise. You have to die by your convictions type mentality.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm not saying they originated it, but they certainly were the first ones to have success with that ideology. And I think that that's where I first saw it really starting to spread.
So I think, and this is what pisses me off. We finally have a second party within the Republican Party. We could have split the party, and essentially kind of did, right? Because then you had these, what do they call the freshman guy, the freshman Congress people came in. But you finally had a moment to split the party and create two separate parties, but that didn't happen. The opposite happened. I don't know, it kind of fused everyone together even more. And all of a sudden, let's call them the less, what's the word I'm looking for? The less stauncher Republicans kind of were told, you're not Republican enough. You need to be tougher by these Tea Party members. And then I feel like if I would agree with you on that, then the whole thing would have been, instead of us separating and saying, okay, you guys be radical Republicans, for lack of a better word, and we'll be you want to call us little wimpy Republicans. That's cool. We're cool over here in our wimpy section. You can be radical. But now we have two parties, two different points of views. And now you have the Democrats that have two people to now talk to. But I think originally that's what was happening, but it just fell apart. And instead it galvanized the Republicans to stay together and not reach across. Because if you reach across, you're back to the wimpy Republicans.
Historically, political parties are successful when they can get unified behind a single message.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So if everyone can get behind a particular ideology, a particular message, a particular objective, then they have the greatest amount of success.
Yeah.
So to create a secondary division of, okay, you're going to be this type of Republican, I'm going to be that type of Republican, is basically political suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the other side doesn't make the same divisions, they're going to come across as a unified voice. You guys are going to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. They're going to win. Okay? So the only way for you to have success is to somehow bring the party together. This is what happens, this is what used to happen in all the prior debates in political elections, is that, okay, they all went after each other, but then when it was all over, we're all been a big happy family. We're all going to get together. We're going to come up with a unified mission, okay, and go against it. Unfortunately, the galvanizing issue that always has seemed to, in the last few elections, presidential elections, the galvanizing issue that has brought everybody together is like, we have to beat the other guy.
Yeah. Us versus them.
No unified message inside. It's just like, that guy sucks. We need to get rid of him or her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So everyone's united in this. Don't talk about this guy's infidelity. Don't talk about his poor tax record. Don't talk about his illegal activities, because we need to defeat that moron over there.
Yeah, let's get together, forgive our problems, or forget our problems for now. Yeah.
Ignore them. Straight up ignore them.
Yeah, you're right.
We're not even going to talk about them. Just ignore them completely. Everybody got behind the message. It doesn't matter. You don't agree with anything that this guy's saying, but he is better than that one over there.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what the movement was to go against Trump this last election.
And it was the movement that Trump won against
anyone but Trump.
Yeah.
That was the message. And I think that helped.
Actually, it's the movement that also helped Obama. Okay, because when Obama went against McCain, his greatest success was painting McCain as the next George Bush.
Yeah.
Which McCain did a poor job of fighting that message until it was too late.
And I like John McCain.
He was awesome.
I like John McCain.
He was awesome.
I think his campaign manager cost him that. I think they needed that spark. They went for the Sarah Palin, and I just think all of a sudden you're like, who's John McCain again? You know Sarah Palin's never going to be president, but she was fun to watch. I think she's batshit crazy, but it was a lot of fun to watch. And at the end of the election, you're like, who's John McCain again? So I really like John McCain.
His message was lost.
Yeah, poor guy.
His message was lost.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
So we grew up Republican.
Fair enough, yeah.
I would say I would have voted Republican all the way until probably, I think I voted for John McCain. And then since then, I couldn't tell you for sure. I never towed the party line. I kind of feel I've always been independent thinker. But I think the last Republican candidate I voted for was John McCain. and not out of. I wanted Mitt Romney to do good, but I voted for Obama. Who was after that? Trump, Hillary, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was Trump, Hillary.
Trump, Hillary.
I voted for Hillary Clinton. I feel she got railroaded on the FBI investigation thing.
Right.
I feel like, again, did she lose the entire election because of that? No. But did it help her win? Absolutely not. I feel like if that bumped it a point or two, if you were undecided, that pushed you over to the edge. And I feel terrible. I don't feel like it was fair. I don't feel like it was right. But I will say this. I did enjoy a lot of parts of Trump's presidency. I did like a lot of. It started off great, man. It started off great, and then I kind of.
If you remove Trump
Uh-huh.
from his policies, they sound reasonable.
If you
The
remove
minute
Trump,
Trump explains his policies, they sound idiotic and insane.
he is definitely for someone to have gone to the best schools, to have eaten on the best plates, to have eaten in the finest restaurants, to own some of the finest restaurants and hotels. He is very unrefined. He is not a very polished individual. And I I don't know how he got that way, but there are things that he does that I enjoy and admire, and there are other things that I cringe and I'm just like, wow, this is the best that we got.
It's the reality effect. He doesn't live in the same world that the rest of us do.
Yeah.
And it comes across in everything he says and does. It's just like, okay, no rational person would express what you're saying in that way. I mean, that's just the worst possible way to get your point across.
But then he gets shit done. And that's when I'm just like, wow, sure, there could have been better ways. We could have had a lot more friends getting the job done. But at the end of the day, he got the job done. Maybe he looks at it too much as a businessman. I don't know.
So we've talked about issues before where there's no winner. No matter who
Oh, yeah.
does this, right? No matter how you tackle this issue, you're going to get your hands dirty and people are going to accuse you of terrible things, no matter how you do it. So most people just don't tackle the issue because they don't want to get.
They don't want to be the bad guy. They don't want to get labeled the whatever. They don't want to get canceled.
Okay. So by not giving a damn about what anybody has to say, think about him,
Yeah.
it allowed Donald Trump to go after issues that a lot of people felt strongly about, wanted something done about, has never had anything done about it. Here's a guy who's going to do something. And that's where he got his momentum. And that's where he got his success. Unfortunately, it's nice that somebody tackled these issues. It would have been nicer if anyone else on the planet had attacked these issues, okay? And we would have got a better result. But at least the issue got pushed to the forefront. At least something was done.
Yeah, something got done. And we talked about this in the last segment. That's how I felt about Obamacare. Someone did something. And did he go about it the best possible way? Absolutely not. But there was one thing that Obama did say in a speech. He says, I created this system, or we created, he didn't say I, we created this system. It was imperfect and it was going to collapse on itself because the point was we need to do something even better. And that's why they rolled out with it. There's been really no significant changes to it. This thing is hanging on by a thread, but it's still in existence now. And no one wants to touch it. No one wants to touch it. And I know Trump tried to get rid of it and he failed on that. That's one of the things I think he did fail at pretty badly. Try to, what was it, repeal and replace or something like that?
Yeah, but honestly, more of that falls on the Republican leadership
Yeah.
in general. That felt more on the party, less so than Trump. Trump was the Republican Party at that time launched its campaign underneath the coattails of Donald Trump based on the concept of, well, we're getting rid of this thing. We're
Right.
going to come up with a better plan and get rid of it. They never delivered on that promise.
Fair enough. You can't, it's not Trump's job to, yeah, right? Okay.
I mean, he could have helped, I guess, but that's not something he's very good at.
I am looking forward to the general election. I just want you to know that. We're going to close out with our segment, Pussy versus Patriot. Top of our list is the organization itself, and that's the new woke Disney. Where would you put them on the spectrum? Not even where, you got to pick a category. It's funny, we talk about divisiveness, and that's exactly what we're doing on this segment. But just to keep it nice and clear, maybe next time we'll do percentages.
So that's a really hard thing because they're trying to push a quote unquote woke agenda, all inclusiveness, bring everybody into it. But I have to put them down as pussies.
Yep.
Because there have been one too many issues where there was pushback and they wavered.
Yep.
And if this was your objective and this was your intention, then you should have gone with it. And then on top of that, when some of their rank and file actors, producers didn't toe that party line, they were fired.
Yeah.
Okay. So from my point of view is that you're trying to create this woke, open agenda for everyone. Unless you disagree with us, then you got to go.
Yeah.
That to me is un-American. I'm sorry. That makes you a pussy.
Yeah, and I think that's the basis of our podcast. You can disagree, but dude, let's come to the table, talk about it, and we still don't agree. Well, let's move on. You know what I mean? But yeah, for people to get fired because they say something that goes against the agenda, I think
Because I work for you doesn't mean I have to endorse your political views.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a condition of employment.
I agree with that 100%. You're talking a little bit about Gina Carano.
Well, she would be the most
amongst
obvious
many.
one. Yeah, but there were others that were involved in the same.
Yeah. I
Ideas.
got to put Disney currently the way they're running things. They're running it like a bunch of pussies. We talked about this on last time. The Don, he doesn't apologize. And I do see that as a characteristic of of a successful individual, a great organization. We did talk about where its weaknesses were, but I think Disney's gone too much on the apology tour, not sticking to its agenda. And when you do go against it, they fire your ass. I mean, I think that sends the wrong message. We didn't talk about Ukraine this time, but we did last time, and I want to give President Putin his fair shake. Is he a pussy or is he a patriot? And to me, this is a hard one.
In terms of his own mind, for the interest of Russia, the man's a patriot.
So once again, in his own mind,
he believes he is advancing Russian influence for the betterment of Russia. That's a patriot.
Do you think him wanting to restore the Soviet Union to its glory is true? Or do you think that's some bullshit?
I think he believes that, yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think he's drank his own Kool-Aid on that issue.
He's not a stupid man. He can see on paper why the Soviet Union collapsed and why it probably would never be able to sustain itself. Why does he think he can? You think he can force people into rank and file, like you said, and force them into? I just don't see. The Soviet Union couldn't feed itself. So how is it going to? And Ukraine used to be part of it.
I think he believes that the prosperity of Russia would move along further. So their aims, their goals to move that along would go further if he annexed these countries back when they were part of the Soviet Union. I think he's endorsing this idea of the reason why we have these economic problems is because we let go of these territories. So therefore we need to take them back, and therefore we will regain the same level of that doesn't seem economically feasible to me. Doing that, I
mean, look at the EU, the shit that the EU went through.
Yeah.
Why would you want to do? Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me, but I think that he's embracing that ideology.
So Putin's like 70 something.
I think so.
I think he could kick my ass. So I'm calling him a patriot. I would never call Putin a pussy just out of fear of getting my ass kicked. This guy rides a horse with no shirt on, dude. He he does judo. I mean, they probably let him win. What is he doing? He's doing jujitsu. They probably let him win, but dude, the fact that they don't want to beat him, I don't know. He's intimidating. And I do think he thinks he's doing right for his Russian constituents. I wouldn't say for the country, because I think that country is just as divided as any other country in terms of who's whatever. But anyway. And last but not least, one of our fan favorites. I don't know if you realize or if you heard that Robert De Niro. He was recently exonerated from his. He was found not to be at fault. He was in a court case. He was being sued. His production company, his movie production company, he himself were being sued, and the production company they ended up paying some fines. I think it was like $200,000-$300,000 to the lady that was suing, but Robert De Niro was found not at fault. He didn't do anything wrong. Robert De Niro's done a lot in his career. And he's done a lot, I feel, as a human being. That's why I put him on the list. Is he a pussy or a patriot?
I would have to go with patriot.
Yeah.
He's a person who overcame a lot of his own
demons,
self-destructive behavior.
Yeah,
is the way I would put it, and who's a person who put his nose to the ground, accepted the fact that he had to make amends for his errors, his mistakes.
Yeah.
Did the legwork. Okay, fine. It took him a couple tries to get there, but he got
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he was successful with it. I you have to admire somebody who faced adversity, overcame it,
Yeah.
okay, and became a success.
Especially when that adversity is yourself.
Of
You know what I
course.
mean? Fighting yourself. To be
Most of
better.
it is self-inflicted,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
but doesn't matter. It's an adversity. There's plenty of people who have self-inflicted wounds who never recover, never come back from it.
Yeah.
You know, in that regard, you can almost view him as heroic.
I like Robert De Niro. I do. Yeah, I'll label him as a patriot. He's the first Godfather. Well, Marlon Brando is. He's the young Marlon Brando, right? Because he came out in Godfather
he
too.
was
Yeah,
like,
so I can say he's the first Godfather. Marlon Brando, then Robert De Niro, then Al Pacino. All right, and they didn't do. Yeah, they never had another one after Al Pacino, right? Yeah, no, they were talking about bringing.
There was only 3 Godfathers.
Yeah, there's only 3, but they never had a. Yeah, they never
There was
had
never
another
a
one.
4th.
Yeah.
And they were actually never on screen together until Heat.
Well, does Michael and we're totally, but does Michael Caine count as a Godfather? Because he was running the family when Marlon Brando was. Because I remember Marlon Brando in The Godfather 1 saying that he wasn't a good Don. I remember him saying something about Sonny not being a good Don.
No. I think Michael Caine wasn't in The Godfather.
Michael Caine, he was Sonny. Not Michael Caine. John, his last name is Caine or Khan.
Yeah, Khan.
Sorry.
Yes.
God, what's his name? Well, Sonny. We know I'm talking about Sonny, right?
Sonny's brother. I mean, Michael's brother.
Michael's brother. Sonny, the older brother.
God, Khan.
Wasn't he like a Don for like 2 days?
No, he was.
He was
running
considered
the
the
family.
Don,
He was
right?
running the family.
Yeah.
Well,
But they didn't have the whole ceremony of kissing
he
the
wasn't
ring,
a
though.
Don because Don Corleone was still alive.
Okay.
He was running the family. You don't say acting Don, for lack of a better word, but he was running the family.
All right. No, just because I don't want to upset Godfather lore.
Yeah.
We already said Michael Caine, so
I was just like, wait, who we talking? I thought you meant Robert Duvall.
yeah, that's Alfred, right? Michael Caine.
Yes. That was
I'm allowed a brain fart every now and then. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us today, Brothers View. Man, we're just having fun. Safe place to talk, disagree, be politically incorrect, tend to offend,
Of course.
and we're gonna do this again really soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks. See you guys. Woo. Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.